BCC approach in that it is not done internally to Sony Vegas. As you can see, this is the BCC extruded object over a media event, and this was done natively inside of Sony Vegas. We applied the BCC effect and we created it right here in this workspace. The next approach is using HitFilm 2, which is a different program but yet streamlines and integrates with Sony Vegas. So I'm going to take this media asset here and drag it and drop it onto another layer. So the media event is here separately to the other items so that we can actually work out what the HitFilm Ultimate workflow is. Okay, so the way it works is this. You install Sony Vegas and then you install HitFilm Ultimate, and then you have a link created between the two so that when you right click on any media event, you can't by the way do this with media generators, so I couldn't do this with a solid color. I can't send that to HitFilm Ultimate, it has to be a media event. I've got my media event, this just happens to be video, there's no audio, but I could have audio as well. If I right click on that, you'll see that because I installed HitFilm after I installed Sony Vegas, I now have a link created so that I can edit this item inside HitFilm. And editing it inside HitFilm is a brand new workspace, but it does give you a very high level of control, although you do have to learn to use another workflow. So I'm going to click Edit in HitFilm, and that's going to launch HitFilm Ultimate. And as HitFilm Ultimate launches, you're going to find that it launches in a video editing mode. Now the video editing mode is very similar to what you would see inside of Sony Vegas, and it is nothing like as powerful as video editing in Sony Vegas. You may have a few other effects that you don't have inside Sony Vegas, which means that you can do 3D and you can move things around in a different way than perhaps you could have done inside Sony Vegas. So there are different effects, and I could apply effects, save them and send them across, but actually when you're working in a video editing mode, it's not as powerful as Sony Vegas, and most of these effects are duplicated. Not all of them by any means, but most of the effects you've already got. But when we move to a different mode, which is called the compositing mode, you'll see that it makes a big difference, and that's where we're going to create our 3D text. Now the first thing to say is here is the work area. Notice that it just goes on. This is the media asset as it came in from Sony Vegas. So I want to change this from being a video editing workspace to a compositing workspace where I can work with layers so that I can add my text, I can add my textures and cameras and lights and all sorts of things. So I'm going to click on the layer here, and I'm going to go to the top, and you'll see that I've got this option here that says make it into a composite shot. I could also get that, by the way, from right clicking on it and make it into a composite shot, and you can see it's got a keyboard shortcut. So with the layer selected, I'm going to click make a composite shot, and it says, are you sure? What do you want to call it? Yes, I'm going to convert it. And now it opens up a composite workflow. Now the composite workflow, notice that the event is now exactly the same length as the timeline. So it's restricted it to the length of the shot alone, which is quite important. But also I have the ability to add layers to this shot. Now the first thing to say is the workflow itself. I've got a layer here, but I've also got, notice this little disclosure triangle. And when I click on the disclosure triangle, it allows me to get to all kinds of different things with the shot. Now there is no audio, so audio is going to be empty, but the transforms are the opacity, position, X and Y, scale, and also rotation. And incidentally, when you see this 0 times 0 degrees, this first one always refers to complete revolutions. So generally speaking, unless you want something to animate multiple times, you don't change the first one, but the second one would be the actual degrees of change that you're involved in. Now if you've made a change, you think, oh heck, I shouldn't have done that, then you right click on the name of the item that you've changed and reset, and it takes it back to its standard setting. Okay, now also you have these controls over here in the controls panel. Media is where we import media, and we'll import something in a minute, but controls are here. It tells you which layer is selected, and exactly the same controls are available here as are available in the timeline. So if you haven't got a lot of room in your timeline, just select the layer and actually make the changes over here. I'll work between the two just to show you how to do it. Now the first thing I want to do is create my text. And you'll see that you've actually got a panel here that says text. Click on the text. That's just for formatting the text. To create the text, you need to choose the text tool, which is found in the viewer. So we've got the selection tool and we've got the text tool. And this is how I, generally speaking, work with text in HitFilm. click the text tool and define the area you want the text to be in. So just click, hold and drag to define an area where you want the text to show. I want the text to show in that area there. I'm going to let go, and there the area is selected, and I am now ready to create my text. Click in there and type Sea Houses, which is the name of the place where it took place in. So I select that, and now I can format the text over here. So for instance, center justified. This is the font size. Notice I've got this little two-way arrow, which means if you click, hold and drag, you can dynamically change the size of the text. So there we go, we'll make it sort of that sort of size. You can change the font, so I can go to a totally different font if I like, or maybe something we're used to seeing, Arial Black. I can make it bold if bold is available. If you've actually got any font styles, they'll be available inside there. I can add a stroke. This particular item here allows me to add a stroke, and the color of the stroke is defined here. So I can make a stroke any size I like here. I can make the fill transparent, so perhaps I just have a stroke. If I click that, I've now just got transparent fill, just got the stroke. If I want to change the color, you click the color swatch here, and you can go in and select the color you want just by clicking in here. And whatever color is here is the one you want to use. So don't be fooled here. I've got sort of cyan. I think that's brilliant. That's cyan, but this still shows black because I need to increase the brightness. Okay, so just bear in mind that it's whatever is in this field here is what the color is going to be. And if you get one that you like, you can save it as a color swatch down here, or you can choose one of the basic colors, and I'm going to choose white and go back to white and click OK. So there's my text. It's been created, which is fantastic. So I've done the first section, click away, and there it is inside of my composition, ready to work with. It's not doing anything. I can still play. Notice I've got a play button here, and I've got the media asset, the event playing below, which is great. But I could also have just clicked and dragged, or I can hit the space bar to play it. And actually it has brought in the audio from the original event because it's linked to the original event on my computer. So there we go. We've got all of that ready to go, which is brilliant. But I want to fill this text with a texture. Now I'm going to use a picture that you've seen before, and I'm going to go to the Media tab over here where I can import media assets. Now you can choose import and go down and sort of, you know, import a media asset or whatever. But if you've got spare space down here, all you need to do is double click in the spare space, and it brings up the place where you can bring in media assets. And I'm going to use this photo 159, which is an old photo I took on a camera phone outside my front door in 2009, and I haven't done anything to it, straight off a very old camera phone. Double click, bring it in, that's the item. I get a preview of it here, and if I want to add it to my timeline, I click, hold and drag, and then I get this wonderful feedback. I get this sort of neon green line showing me exactly where it's going to go. And I'm going to let go, and it's gone over the top. Well, that's brilliant, but of course I can't see the text now. And what I really want to do is I want this image to fill the text. That's actually what I want to happen. But I need to be able to set up some sort of effect that will look at the text below. I can turn the eyeball off just to turn it off temporarily here. To look at this text below and say, right, where I've got this white and red is where the picture should show, but where it's transparent here, I want it to remain transparent. So I'm going to turn that back on. So what I want to do is actually create something called a matte. So I'm going to go to my Effects tab up here. I'm going to type the word matte, M-A-T-T-E. It's actually, that's the spelling for matte. And I want to set a matte. So here is the set matte effect. And I just need to drag that down to the photo layer, and it opens up in the timeline all the bits and pieces that I need down here. Okay, so you'll notice effects have opened up and set matte is in there showing that it is applied. And I could temporarily toggle it on and off here if I wanted with this little checkbox. I'm going to open up set matte, and it says what source layer do you want to use as a matte? Well, clearly I want to use this text layer, so I can get the little drop down here and say there's the text layer, that's what I want to use as a matte. Click, and it's done exactly what we want it to do. It has made the image appear inside the text. Notice I've lost my stroke and my fill. They've been completely overwritten by the matte, by the actual image that we've selected. So I can actually shut this layer up, and that's created. However, I want to extrude this layer, and to extrude the layer I have to think that it's actually these two layers are now linked. The photo 159 has got a matte on it that's looking at the text layer below, and they're kind of joined together. And if I want to add an effect to extrude, I want to extrude both of them at the same time, but I can only apply an effect to one layer at a time. So I need to sort of squash these layers together to make them one item. And that's done by converting them both to a new composite shot. So I'm going to select the first one, and then I'm going to hold the Shift key and select the second one. Because they're next to each other, I can use Shift. If they weren't next to each other, by the way, I could have used Control. Now that they're both selected, I have this option here to make them into a composite shot. So if I click make them into a composite shot, it says what do you want to call them. I'm going to call this final text, and I'm going to convert. And it appears that everything's disappeared. But it's not disappeared. Notice I've got tabs in my timeline. The original one is the video editor as it came in, and then we converted it to a shot, and there's the converted shot, and that's the composite. So this final text one here is just those two layers being brought into their own little composition in case I want to make further changes. So for instance, I could take photo 159 and I could possibly, let's see, let's pull it up a bit, and I could choose a different part of the image to fill the text with. So there you go, a different part of the image to fill the text. So I have made a change, and when I go back to the other composite, you'll see that that updates accordingly. Okay, I don't need to see this final one anymore, so I can just shut that off. But if ever I need to get back to it, I can double click it here in the timeline, opens it back up, and I can select the photo layer and say, do you know what, that's too bright for me, I just want to bring it down a bit and choose a slightly darker bit there. And then I can shut that down, and it will have updated naturally inside the original composition here. Okay, brilliant. So I have added all that in. I'm now ready to add the extrusion. And the extrusion is an effect. And as we saw before, we search for effects in the effects tab. So I'm going to click this X to get rid of the search function that I've already done. And I'm going to start typing extrude, E-X-T. And by the time I've got to T, I've only got one option, which is 3D extrusion. So I'm going to drag that, and I'm going to drop this on my composite shot and let go. And instantly you can see it's extruded. And it's opened it up in the timeline, and I can open up, here's the extrusion. Now this time I'm actually going to go over to the controls and have a look at them here. Here's the extrusion. Okay, so I've got the depth, so I can make them really deep. Okay, and I've got the option to include depth of field. I've got illumination. We'll come to all these bits and pieces in a minute. But at the moment, this is actually still a 2D layer. Okay, so if I were to go to the transforms for this item here, I can only move it right and left, and I can only rotate it so that it would spin around this way. But I want this to be 3D. I want to be able to look at the end of this. So I need to convert this layer to a 3D layer and see what happens. Well, you convert it with this little button here. If I click convert, I can actually have the option to make it a 3D plane. Click 3D plane. It says I've got to add a camera if I'm going to do that. Shall I do that? Yes, that's fine. So I've added a camera to my scene, and the layer now has different options. And you can see that if I open up the position under my 3D extrusion, you see that I've got position X and Y and Z. Now look what happens when I move it around. Can you see that the bevel is changing to reflect where it's moved? Okay, so you can see that it does update to take into account how we're looking at it, which is brilliant. And I can actually make it Z, I can zoom it further away, or I can bring it closer in and change its position just by dragging in here, okay? So I can look at the position and move things around and change things around. However, when I come down to doing a rotation, so I've got rotation down here, I've got rotation, I can actually rotate, remember the Y-axis is the one that goes up and down, so I can spin it side on. Let's start doing a rotation. Remember, it's the second value I want to rotate. Start rotating it sideways. Oh, okay, that's looking a bit odd. That's not really doing what I want it to do. That's looking particularly weird. So that's not going to solve the problem for what I want to do. Okay, so that's not going to help me. I've got to actually have another approach to be able to do the rotation I need to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something new. I'm going to create what's called a point helper. So I'm going to go to this item here that says new layer and go down to point. I'm going to make the point 3D plane. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my text, my final text, and I'm going to go to position, and you'll see it's going to transform from. So under 3D extrusion, I've got position and I've got the option to transform from, and I can transform from that new point that I've created. Now it looks different immediately, but if I now open up my point helper and open up its transform properties, which I can do in the timeline down here if I want to. I can go to transform here, or I can go to transform over here, and I'm going to do it over here. And I start to transform its Y rotation. Look what happens. The item is moving around in a different way. Now, the reason I've got a slightly odd transformation here is because of the anchor point of the layer, which is in a different place. Because I've moved it backwards and forwards in space, if I actually go back to my text layer, you'll see that I've changed Z. So if I were to right click and reset Z, and then I was to go back to my point helper and transform things along, you'll see that it rotates from its middle point. But the advantage is when I get right into the middle, you can see it's truly 3D and I'm not losing any of it. So if I just break that relationship and just very quickly go back and say, okay, I'm going to leave it at none, and as it was on its original, so that I'm going to rotate it just on the layer itself. Remember, it looked a bit weird last time. As I go around to the edge, when I get to the edge, the whole thing disappears. So you can't do it from the actual layer itself. You must have the point helper. I'm going to leave that at 0. And so when you get to the extrusion position, go to new point. Now when you make the changes to the point helper, you'll find that you can actually get right edge on 90 degrees, and you'll see that you've got no problems at all. You've got the full extrusion. Now, there are a few other options inside of extrusion. I'm going to go back to my layer here, and you'll notice I've got extrusion, and I've got a couple of other bits and pieces, including things called illumination and environment map. So under environment map, I can make the background reflect on the text. So where it says layer, under environment map, if I drop that down, I can choose 3DC, and you'll see that the 3DC begins to reflect inside the text, and I can choose the amount, so I can turn it down a bit if I want. I can choose to have it very blurred or not blurred at all, depending on how I want it to look. So a little bit of blur goes a long way. I can also change its scale and all the rest of it. So if you want the background to reflect in the text, you add an environment map. Also, if you want to change the illumination of how this looks, you can actually add lights. At the moment it's using the composition lights, but you can add a light to your scene, which is what I'm going to do now. New layer, go down to light. There's a new light added into my scene. Okay, instantly there are changes. Everything looks very different. And I'm going to open up the light. So here's the light. I'm going to open up light, and I'm going to look at its properties, and I can see it's a nice bright white light. Everything looks fine. So I'm going to go back to my text layer, my final text layer, and where it says comp lights, I'm going to go down to selected light, and I'm going to make it light 1, new light. Okay, so there's the new light, and I now need to make changes to the light. So its intensity is quite bright, and I need to change where it is based. So it's transform position, X, Y, and Z, pull it forward. Okay, so I'm pulling it forward, so it was behind the text because we'd moved the position of the text. But when I start to pull it forward, you'll see that I can make the light change how it affects the text. So I'm just pulling it forward slightly, the position of the text. I can also change the color of the light. So if I change the color to, I know, let's make it green, just for example. There's a green light, click OK. It's really colorized the text, and I can change the intensity of the light to see how it works. I'm actually going to take that back to white because I think that looks awful. Okay, but I can play with the intensity of that light to create a more dramatic look if I like. Okay, so that's the light affecting the text, and the position of the light is affecting the text. And I can animate all of this, by the way, inside of HitFilm Ultimate, which we'll have a look at another time. So that's the light showing on the text, and we can make that dramatic, and we can play with shadows and all kinds of bits and pieces. But if I just go back to my extruded text again, and I go to this extrusion option, notice I've got this last one here, which is materials, and I can change the way that that light is affecting the actual text itself, including I can make it more specular, so it get brighter or less specular, and the shininess onside the actual text itself. So you can make a lot of changes just by playing with this extrude option inside of HitFilm Ultimate. Right, now it's done. Obviously I could show you more, but time's running out. I just save it, click save. Okay, once it's saved, go back to Sony Vegas, give it a moment, and there we go. We have it inside of the asset inside of Sony Vegas. And any animation that I'd done inside of HitFilm would have been updated inside of Sony Vegas. And of course I know the length that I have to play with the animation there. So let's just do one very quick piece of animation. I'm going to animate the Z shift of my position of my 3D extruded text. So I'm going to click this little item here, and you'll notice that a keyframe has been created. Alright, so I'm going to, at this point, take it backwards, see how it is, and then I'm going to go forward a little bit in time, and I'm going to pull it forward. Okay, it's a terribly simple one, but if I go slightly past the light, you'll see it for the sake of showing you how it works. I could make all sorts of changes, but I'm not going to explain it. I'm just going to click Save, and I'm now going to go back to Sony Vegas, give it a moment to update, and you'll see that as I go backwards and forwards through the event, it starts and moves forward. So we've actually got that animation coming on. And I could have done it with opacity and all sorts of other bits and pieces. So that is creating 3D extruded text inside of HitFilm Ultimate linked to Sony Vegas Pro. This particular workflow also gives you other benefits for other things that you can do. I hope you found this tutorial useful.